One day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side of the lake." So they got into a boat and left. As they sailed, Jesus fell asleep. A storm came down on the lake. It was so bad that the boat was about to sink. They were in great danger. The disciples went and woke Jesus up. They said, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." He got up and ordered the wind and the huge waves to stop. The storm quietened down. It was completely calm. "Where is your faith?" he asked his disciples. They were amazed and full of fear. They asked one another, "Who is this? He commands even the winds and the waves, and they obey him." So Jesus and his disciples sailed to the area of the Gerasenes across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped on shore, he was met by a man from the town. The man was controlled by demons. For a long time he had not worn clothes or lived in a house. He lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Jesus, Son of the Most High God, what do you want with me? I beg you, don't hurt me." This was because Jesus had commanded the evil spirit to come out of the man. Many times the spirit had taken hold of him. The man's hands and feet were chained, and he was kept under guard, but he had broken his chains. And then the demon had forced him to go out into lonely places in the countryside. So Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. And they begged Jesus again and again not to order them to go into the abyss. A large herd of pigs were feeding on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he allowed it. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs. Then the herd rushed down the steep bank. They ran into the lake and drowned. Those who were tending the pigs saw what had happened. They ran off and reported it in the town and countryside. The people went out to see what had happened. Then they came to Jesus. They found the man who was now free of the demons. He was sitting at Jesus' feet. He was dressed and thinking clearly. All this made the people afraid. Then all the people who lived in the area of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them. They were filled with fear, so he got into the boat and left. The man who was now free of the demons begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him away. He said to him, "Return home and tell how much God has done for you." So the man went away. He told people all over town how much Jesus had done for him. When Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him. They were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus came. He was a synagogue leader. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged Jesus to come to his house. His only daughter was dying. She was about 12 years old. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. A woman was there who had a sickness that made her bleed. Her sickness had lasted for 12 years. No one could heal her. She came up behind Jesus and touched the edge of his clothes. Right away her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" asked Jesus. Everyone said they didn't do it. Then Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pushing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." The woman realized that people would notice her. Shaking with fear, she came and fell at his feet. In front of everyone, she told why she had touched him. She also told how she had been healed in an instant. Then he said to her, "Dear woman, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus. Jairus was the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," the messenger said. "Don't bother the teacher any more." Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just believe. She will be healed." When he arrived at the house of Jairus, he didn't let everyone go in with him. He only took Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. During this time, all the people were crying and sobbing loudly over the child. "Stop crying," Jesus said. "She is not dead, she is sleeping." They laughed at him. They knew she was dead, but he took her by the hand and said, "My child, get up." Her spirit returned, and right away she stood up. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were amazed, but Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. Jesus called together the 12 disciples. He gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and to heal sicknesses. Then he sent them out to announce God's kingdom and to heal those who were sick. He told them, "Don't take anything for the journey. Don't take a walking stick or a bag. Don't take any bread, money, or extra clothes. When you're invited into a house, stay there until you leave that town. Some people may not welcome you. If they don't, leave their town and shake the dust off your feet. This will be a witness against the people living there." So the 12 disciples left. They went from village to village. They announced the good news and healed people everywhere. Now Herod, the ruler of Galilee, heard about everything that was going on. He was bewildered because some were saying that John the Baptist had been raised from the dead. Others were saying that Elijah had appeared. Still others were saying that a prophet of long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, I had John's head cut off. So who is it that I hear such things about?" And he tried to see Jesus. The disciples returned. They told Jesus what they had done. Then he took them with him. They went off by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed Jesus. He welcomed them and spoke to them about God's kingdom. He also healed those who needed to be healed. Late in the afternoon, the 12 disciples came to him. They said, "Send the crowd away. They can go to the nearby villages and countryside. There they can buy food and find a place to stay. There is nothing here." Jesus replied, "You give them something to eat." The disciples answered, "We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. We'd have to go and buy food for all this crowd. About 5,000 men were there." But Jesus said to his disciples, "Have them sit down in groups of about 50 each." The disciples did so, and everyone sat down. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He looked up to heaven and gave thanks. He broke them into pieces, and then he gave them to the disciples to give to people. All of them ate and were satisfied. The disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover pieces. One day Jesus was praying alone. Only his disciples were with him. He asked them, "Who do the crowd say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others say one of the prophets of long ago has come back to life." "What about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "God's Messiah." Jesus strongly warned them not to tell this to anyone. He said, "The Son of Man must suffer many things. The elders will not accept him. The chief priests and the teachers of the law will not accept him either. He must be killed, and on the 3rd day rise from the dead." Then he said to all of them, "Whoever wants to follow me must say no to themselves. They must pick up their cross every day and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. What is good if someone gains the whole world but loses or gives up their very self? Suppose someone is ashamed of me and my words. The Son of Man will come in his glory and in the glory of the Father and the holy angels. Then he will be ashamed of that person. What I'm about to tell you is true. Some who are standing here will not die before they see God's kingdom." About 8 days after Jesus said this, he went up on a mountain to pray. He took Peter, John, and James with him. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed. His clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in shining glory. Jesus and the 2 of them talked together. They talked about how he would be leaving them soon. This was going to happen in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been very sleepy, but then they became completely awake. They saw Jesus' glory, and the 2 men standing with him. As the men were leaving Jesus, Peter spoke up. "Master," he said to him, "it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters. One will be for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Peter didn't really know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and covered them. The disciples were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud. It said, "This is my son, and I have chosen him. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept quiet about this. They didn't tell anyone at that time what they had seen. The next day, Jesus and those who were with him came down from the mountain. A large crowd met Jesus. A man in that crowd called out, "Teacher," he said, "I beg you to look at my son. He is my only child. A spirit takes hold of him, and he suddenly screams. It throws him into fits so that he foams at the mouth. It hardly ever leaves him. It's destroying him. I begged your disciples to drive it out, but they couldn't do it." "You unbelieving and evil people," replied Jesus. "How long do I have to stay with you? How long do I have to put up with you?" Then he said to the man, "Bring your son here." Even while the boy was coming, the demon threw him into a fit. The boy fell to the ground, but Jesus ordered the evil spirit to leave the boy. Then Jesus healed him and gave him back to his father. They were all amazed at God's greatness. Everyone was wondering about all that Jesus did. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. The Son of Man is going to be handed over to men." But they didn't understand what this meant. That was because it was hidden from them, and they were afraid to ask Jesus about it. The disciples began to argue about which of them would be the most important person. Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he took a little child and had the child stand behind him. Then he spoke to them, "Anyone who welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me." He said, "And anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. The one considered least among you all is really the most important." "Master," said John, we saw something driving out demons in your name. We tried to stop him, because he is not one of us." "Don't stop him," Jesus said. "Anyone who is not against you is for you." Amen.